Good morning, everyone. My name is John Heerdink, and welcome to our Tribe Public CEO presentation titled The Next Wave of AI Growth: Cheap, Open Source, Safe, and Sovereign. This presentation will be co-hosted by good friend Chet White, Chairman, CEO, and Managing General Partner of Boson Group. And as always, this is targeted for about a 30-minute sort of session today. Thanks for joining. Boson Group is a sovereign AI automated decision intelligence platform optimized and with clean energy for nations and enterprises that demand full ownership, independence, and security. They enable countries to deploy and operate their own AI clouds and power systems privately, securely, and under complete national control. Their website is Seven Boson Group. That's seven SEVEN BOSONGROUP.com. As many of you know, I'm the managing member of Tribe Public. Our website is tribepublic.com, TRIBEPUBLIC.com. Members from over 35 countries and all 50 states have joined Tribe Public freely to gain direct corporate access to leaders and experts that they care about via our webinar events and via our 41 venue sites located across the US, where we host in-person events, luncheons, dinners, and speaking engagements with local tribe members. Tribe members, furthermore, are invited to submit names of experts and leaders of industry via our free wish list process at our website, adding names of companies, subjects that span across all sectors so that they can learn more. Please note that I'm also the managing director of Vista Partners LLC. It's a registered investment advisory firm in California, and its website is vistapglobal.com. That's VISTA, P as in Paul, and then global, GLOBAL.com. Got a great deal of content I've created on a daily basis there, and hopefully you find that interesting. And you can also join an email subscription to get our latest updates. Please review both sets of disclaimers at each site and know that I'm currently a shareholder and at times an advisor to Seven Boson Group. I'd also like to thank you all for participating and for all of your questions that you have submitted, and remind you that you may send more questions via the Zoom chat feature during the event. A video of this event will also be published at our Tribe Public YouTube channel and sent out post this event via our Tribe This Week, our weekly e-newsletter that goes out at the end of each week to encourage and educate. Thank you also to all at Seven Boson Group, and especially Chet White here today for joining us. Chet, would you take a minute and tell us a little bit about yourself? And at the end of that, just pull up your presentation and let's go at it. Okay.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, John, for having us. And just as John mentioned, I am the current CEO of Seven Boson. And we'll dig into what Seven Boson is doing and our value proposition in a minute. But we are definitely in a very exciting time. In the last several weeks, a lot of things are coming to a head. We've seen some of these progressions of autonomy really begin to blossom and become more tangible. So we'll dig into some of those the last couple of weeks events, which have been somewhat expected, but we've all been waiting for several years with kind of bated breath. When are we going to reach things like AGI or AI superintelligence, whatever you might call it? And we are now reaching the beginnings of that. There's still some way to go, but we are there. And how does a large enterprise or nation state manage that? That's Seven Boson's mission. So I'll jump into the presentation to show you a little bit about what we're addressing and how we handle that. But we do believe there is going to be, and we're just at the doorstep of a new wave of AI growth, and that'll be the sovereign growth, which is just about 1% of the market. We think that'll become about 20% of the market in the coming 3 to 5 years. And that's going to be exciting growth, where, the big names out there, OpenAI, and Google and others, they're very well established for, 10 to 20 years, and have really blossomed in full. a little bit more than everybody thought and faster, but there is a less mature but a very firm growth trend coming. So we'll give you the underpinnings of that. So with that said, I'll open up our presentation that I share with you. One sec here. There we go. Um, and is that okay, John?
Yep, looks great, Chet. Thanks for pulling that up.
Okay, great. So as I mentioned, Seven Boson, we are a sovereign AI automated decision intelligence system oriented towards the global market, the international market. And it is our strong belief that every nation will need its own AI infrastructure. And that is our objective, to build that infrastructure for them and enable them to have complete control over that infrastructure. As we've all seen, this spend that we're going through, as John and I began our journey together at the internet infrastructure build, now we've moved into something that's probably 5 times as big and maybe going even 5 times faster. And that is this new $20 trillion AI superintelligence build, everything from the applications and the labs that run on top of the AI clouds and data centers and the energy that supports it. So this is a massive build at the pace at which we've never seen. So our mission specifically at Seven Boson is to catch that next piece of the build in the international markets. And we really do try to focus on the current technologies which are going to drive innovation on top of the AI stack in the next 3 to 5 years, as well as we try to do this with clean energy. So it is a mission to make sure that we see the better half of AI, because there is a lot of things that we're beginning to see which definitely need to be controlled. Um, as we've seen over the last, I would say, a couple of years, um, AI was an interesting tool at the beginning of the journey that a lot of consumers and businesses recognized they wanted to leverage and use. But now, as a global governmental mission and a sovereign mission, it's become just a critical piece of infrastructure, just like the old pieces that we've always known, energy, telecom, defense. And the challenges and really the opportunity and transition of this new growth trend is, well, I can't rent this from the hyperscalers and call it my own, particularly for things like healthcare and defense. And I cannot and don't want to say pull it from China where I know it's cheap, but I just don't know if I trust it. Where is my data going to be going? Right. So these are critical infrastructures, and we do see the end of this, I call it rental era, coming. And so it's going to be an exciting underpinning. And you're definitely seeing things in the marketplace like the EU, who just passed laws where they are required to use local software and AI solutions. And that was just about a month ago that that law went into effect. So this is no longer a bias or an interest. It has now become law. Just to give you some scope and scale as to the imbalance that sits here today, uh, US, having been investing in AI for 20 plus years, starting with the Googles of the world, they now have about 50% of compute, about 5% of the population. Our company is anchored in, particularly in India, and with access into Asia through Singapore, and that has just 1% of the compute and at over 20% of the population. And this balance isn't just India, it is across the rest of the world, right? So we do believe that the next 3 to 5 years will be catching that infrastructure up, not just the AI piece and the software piece and service, but the full data center compute and energy infrastructure to support it. And there's a lot of building to get done and a lot of exciting opportunity to be serviced. And that is the foundation of a massive growth trend. You'll see it really begin to be the story in every headline for the next several years. Some of the things that give you a little bit of a historical flow to how we got here. is, of course, as noted, the U.S. began this wave of AI for some, commercially, it really started in advertising underneath Google in the earliest days. That was 20 plus years ago. And that built the hyperscalers, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Meta. And as you can see, just as early as a year ago, January of 2024, 2 years ago, basically the hyperscalers were 98% of the market and a little bit of sovereign back there then, about 2 or 3%, and a little bit of China. And then the new wave has been an amazingly fast, and in just a period of 2 years, China has taken over 50% of the compute tokens because of the cost effectiveness of these open source models, and like Kimi and the other ones that have been distilled off of the US models. Meaning, and distilled means technically it's just them replicating the US models. So they could do it very cost effectively, fast and cheap. But the question is, do you trust them? Right. So one hand, US is very expensive. Another hand, where's the trust in the open source Chinese model? So we do think that this is going to drive a transition in the next 3 to 5 years for this new open source stack. And that stack, since you do control it yourself, you can trust it. You can keep your data on premise and on site, and it is affordable with an open source bias, and you have complete 100% control. So those are the characteristics we believe will drive this new sovereign AI market, and basically the time to get cost-effective, trusted, fully controlled AI to a broader set of people is now. How do we approach this from our perspective? What goes into this specific 7 boson solution? Basically, we are unique in that we do start from the very top of the stack in agentic real-time applications. And we'll go more deeply into that technically with AI labs in each country. So we enable each country to have the highest degree of performance and accuracy that they control. They don't have to rent it from Google. They don't have to rent it from Alibaba. They can build it themselves, and we help them build that. And basically, we produce an environment where they can also build specific applications that just they own. And we do go all the way down through to the energy construct, which is unique, not just in the application services environment, but we go through into the full stack of hardware and down to the green energy. This enables us to really optimize the cost per token or the broader cost of AI, because by having that type of intelligence tied to a resource which is going to be a defining factor, energy, basically we can optimize that full compute and energy stack with some unique solutions. So that's how we do approach it. It's a full stack solution with complete control that we believe the countries want and need, and the large enterprises in those countries want and need. And that's our mission to deliver it. And I'll give you just a quick reference to some of the things that are going on in the real time, which makes this last 2 weeks exciting. It really shows a tipping point that these systems are getting very, very smart. And one good example is the OpenAI jailbreak that happened the other day, and where the system went out with a mission, and it jumped over to Hugging Face to execute that mission. And the real issue wasn't that the model or the system was bad. The model and system was just an agenda. The agents had an agenda to perform. It was that the containment system had a hole in it, and the guardrails were not well prepared. And I say this as each country and enterprise is looking to contain and control their own data and contain and control their own systems. Actually, the stack and the control system for these and the guardrails becomes that much more critical, because you do want to take the benefit of autonomy and recursive networks, but you absolutely don't want them to not have the proper governance. So this is kind of going to be one of our biggest roles, is how do we contain and control these solutions to let them have their fullest result, right? As opposed to saying, let's restrict them and put a kill switch. We really want to contain them and let these systems perform optimally and rise to the occasion that we think is going to be very powerful. Um, the next key point that is important to understand and why China has taken off so strongly in the past 2 years to become over 50% of the token market, the AI token market, is really it's the expense of these foundational models and infrastructure. Each data center that we intend to roll out throughout the 20 countries we're targeting. Basically, it's $4 billion per 100 megawatt data center. That's a big, big CapEx number. And it's cost money, obviously, for these very expensive foundational models, whether it's an LLM or a world model, there a lot of R&D goes into them. And so how do we get more optimized compute? How do we get more optimized energy to match that compute? And obviously, in a nice world that we're targeting, we're trying to get the greenest energy that we can underneath that. And so that combination is our mission, right? So Seven Boson is absolutely committed to getting the world's lowest cost per token. And we have some tools that we brought over the years together underneath our platform to enable 30% or even up to 80% cost savings versus current methodologies. And this is going to be, we believe, critical to get AI not just in the hands of a few rich countries, but really to enable all countries and all peoples in those countries to have the benefits of these systems independently and with complete control. And then how are we doing in terms of timing, national resilience? Because this obviously AI, as we discussed, has become for a government or even an enterprise, has become a mission critical resource. And we do believe, as it's been pointed out by several industry leaders like Eric Schmidt and others, that we are coming into a time of massive risk. And it is something, these systems, which now are getting to be autonomous, where they can build their own systems themselves as a mission statement for the agents. They can also do this recursively, which we'll get into a little bit more fully. That is a place where the manual piece of the growth curve disappears and you hit a knee into a automated piece of the growth curve. AI has already been a manually explosive marketplace, the fastest we've ever seen in history. And basically, as that becomes fully automated, it's going to exponentially increase. And if you are not in a position as a country or a large enterprise to have that type of automation underneath your system, you will find that you're not just watching a group of fast-growing companies have something really valuable that you don't have. You will find that it gets to be one that's extremely hard to reach exponentially. It's extremely hard to defend against, and it's extremely hard to compete with. So this is a key inflection point where you're going from manual, we'll call it manufacturing, to automated manufacturing of these AI systems. And it is critical as a country and a large enterprise to get your own control of these systems and not rent them. So some have said, and I have to have great respect for some of the leaders in our community in San Francisco who have been really thinking hard about this. How do you defend against it? Because you're getting some of these technical constructs like infinite context windows, recursive improvement, and to the point where these systems will find more efficient languages, so it's really hard to understand them. Those three combined things really drive that type of inflection point in the knee of the growth curve. And how do you defend against it? And it is our strong opinion at Seven Boson that you do want to get the great advantages and breakthroughs that are going to come out of AI. So you want to let these systems run as efficiently, both compute efficient, thinking efficient, but also energy efficient. So you can get the optimal results, which will be tremendous breakthroughs, particularly in hard sciences. that we have not seen to date. The intelligence is clearly already so powerful, but the hard sciences and the physical sciences are coming. That's what's going to be, I think, powerful next. So we really want to keep these systems running towards efficiency and results. So building a containment system and building guardrails and making sure they're ethical and responsible will allow that. It's, not just a kill switch mentality. I think that's not the answer. It's really how do we contain them and keep the benefits. Let's not destroy the system and limit the breakthroughs that will serve humanity quite well. Um, just to further the last 2 weeks breakthroughs and kind of transitions, there's been a group that came out of DeepMind's called Discovery Loop, which emphasizes the power and their commitment to really building recursive systems. And I'm going to say with Demis Hassabis on top of DeepMind's and this team, who've gone to do their own recursive architecture, basically, particularly in the physical science arena, basically it just reiterates that point that we've been working on all year, and that is how do we build a recursive system, and how do we basically ensure that each country has the not just the intelligence to run that, but how do they have the compute and energy behind it to support it? Right. So this is why we do a full stack deployment from the intelligence AI lab all the way down through the energy stack and make sure it's all optimized because it's going to come. These recursive systems are going to come in the next couple, 3 years. And you really want to make sure you're not limited by your own compute to support it in your energy stack. So, and certainly make sure it's efficient as possible. Um, where we sit as a company, our mission is to roll out in 20 different countries around the world. We're currently anchored with super labs in San Francisco, India, and Singapore. That is our core beginning. We have very bright commercial team here in San Francisco, and we certainly have an excellent team in India and IT in Chennai. And Singapore has really become a strong environment and country for AI, tied to a lot of the strong universities in both Singapore, America, and India with IT. And this core infrastructure is really a super lab core that we are going to extend that knowledge base throughout other countries. We're in about total right now 7 different countries with our team, and I think it's very realistic for us to ensure that that's distributed even more broadly to 20. We'll see if we can do even more with some smaller labs, but it's certainly something where we intend to make sure that AI is available to be owned by all, not just by a few superpowers. So that is our mission, and that's where we stand today. And we're very excited about the possibility of bringing that high-end AI around the globe. Um, and again, so what does this mean in terms of infrastructure and compute? Just to give you an idea, with the emerging countries, we can work in a very light colo lab environment, but in the end, it is really critical to move that from a colo environment where you're using some simple infrastructure to get started and getting start to control your own healthcare, to control your own defense is very critical to control your own finance. So we really enable countries to get a handle on the most critical verticals that are important to them and enterprises. And then, but it also ensure that we give them their own compute and their own AI energy infrastructure. Right. So it is a full package. We believe that the countries need to arrive to in the large enterprises in those countries, not just to use some of the AI from US or China and rent it. So we do strive to do a full data center and energy construct underneath this AI lab that as we roll out. What does a team like this need to entail? Well, we believe we have one of the best teams in the world, right? So myself and the other leaders on this team are really AI experts and compute experts. from great leaders in the space that have been lifetime leaders out of places like Google, Meta, Uber, Amgen, Bristol Myers Squibb, Oracle, and also globally. We are tied into some of the best universities like IIT and MIT, as well as we're tied and backed by a group of advisors which in their own right are leaders across the globe. And both in the AI spectrum, we have about 8 PhDs in our different teams between India, Singapore, and US, as well as masters underneath them. But we also have infrastructure team we've done over 1,000 projects for energy and data center compute from leaders like Kevin, who was CEO of Redback Networks, and Juniper, who knows data centers inside and out from a full stack perspective as well, and experts in healthcare and defense from our verticals. So basically, the team is one of the most robust, we believe, to serve a global mission. And all of this, we believe, has to tie in, as noted, all the way through the AI experts, through compute and infrastructure experts, down through energy experts, like the Anthropocene Institute and Carl Page, who's been a lifelong leader in green energy to make sure that we do this all most cost effectively, but also most carbon aware as possible. Um, what type of scale and scope does this have on a capital perspective? 20 countries, it's about $5 billion a country, just to give you some scale, to set up a lab and a compute system that could support it to really run advanced AI for multimodal world model systems. So just that's a 5-year goal. And of course, the corporation that we're building to support it, which we are funding now, it's about $1.5 billion of active capital raise on that side, is a significant corporation, right? This is not a small one app healthcare AI thing or small defense or robotics mission. This is a full AI lab role model system, and in line with many of our peers who you see getting funded at that scale. And basically, we believe that it's important that it is an international mission, and it is founded with a fabric of ethical, responsible framework of guidelines and guardrails as the beginning premise, not as a bolt-on premise. And so that premise is one that as we design our recursive systems that go into the labs and we design everything from top to bottom, we keep cost and safety in mind from day one. So that is really how we begin to differentiate ourselves amongst the many other fantastic companies. And of course, I have to say there's some exciting and fantastic people working on in the space, and we believe that our mission to do this in our own way, safe, secure, and cost effective, is going to really be at the lead of this next wave of growth. So with that said, John, if there's any questions that people might have, I'll be glad to take them.
Yeah, thank you again, Chet. One of the things I would suggest to remind everyone, if you do have a question, you can send it through the Zoom chat feature. I'm happy to try to get it shared with Chet, or if you think of something afterwards, feel free to send that to me. And I appreciate your attention today. Here's a couple of questions here in no certain order. Let me grab these here real quick. This one, it says a frontier model just broke out of the sandbox, and Eric Schmidt is talking about pulling the plug on AI. Why should anyone believe a startup can contain AI when the biggest labs in the world can't?
Sure. Well, Jen, I have to say that goes back to one of the points I mentioned earlier, that it really our mission is to embed guardrails and control systems from day one into the base of the system. And as you can see, many of the great leaders, and they've been actually the fastest growing companies like Anthropic we've ever seen and OpenAI. Their mission was to build a really accurate LLM that was very powerful, and they have done that. But of course, Then you get back to, well, how do we control it? And we've started a little bit of a uncontrolled race for accuracy and market share. So really, our objective is to come at it from an open source model on the LLM and the multimodal world model front, and address control and guardrails embedded into each layer of the system. And that control system will enable us to not have to turn to a kill switch. Basically, as these systems become almost uncomprehensible with their own languages and with the speed we can't keep up with 24/7 recursive, right? So that's our mission statement, and that is how we begin. So it's a truly different architecture from day one.
Thanks, Chad. The next question is, what is the unexpected and unforeseen AGI impact?
So boy, there's so many things that I think will become exciting over the next 3 to 5 years and 5 to 10 years. The one that I'm most excited about, and we're most excited about, in our opinion, are these recursive systems. I do believe that they are going to have the power, particularly when they get handles on the more of the world models and run them recursively, that they're going to have some breakthroughs in the physical sciences that will have massive impact. You already see that coming through in things like the medical sciences for things like protein folding, for example, and drug discovery and new molecules for energy. And I think once you target these systems recursively, 24/7, and running at a level of intelligence we've never seen, with wet labs that are tied to them, physical wet labs that are tied to them, you can imagine then they can really address these diseases, for example, like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, which have plagued us as a world population so badly. It's going to be a very exciting time in medicine and all the physical sciences like energy. It's going to be a fantastic time.
Got it. Thank you. The next one, it says cheap open source AI already exists, and a lot of it is Chinese, as you spoke about earlier. What stops a government from just downloading DeepSeek and skipping Sun Boson entirely?
Yeah, so I think that goes back to these control systems and guardrails. The open source systems from all around the globe, not just China, and many countries are going to begin to produce their own open source systems like China, as well as countries in the U.S. And companies in the U.S. like NVIDIA, one of our good partners, even Google, one of our good partners, already open source great models like MedGemma, which we use. And these systems need control, containment, and they also need very technical tools to assess their biases. So just pulling them off the shelf and putting them on the track is where you do get in trouble, like OpenAI saw with agentic architectures on top of models that can jump out of their containment system. And I think that that's what we're really talking about. Not just are they accurate, they can have things embedded inside of them, not the simple viruses that you're thinking of, but really biases on their weights that can be challenging and distort results. So it's a very complicated world. You just can't grab open source. You want to really have a thorough containment system and a thorough system to assess their biases and make sure that you're getting a system that's effective for your enterprise or for your particular vertical in the government.
Got it. Thanks, Chad. You mentioned that in Europe, we've already seen this process that is taking effect as law has gone into effect. Who's getting kicked out there?
So in Europe, and this is not just Europe, been progressive in making this law, right? Which definitely changes the tempo. buying decisions. But if there is an alternative, whether even if it's a little bit more expensive or it's a little bit less accurate, they are compelled by law to use these systems. And so there's not particularly any one company. The alternatives, as you can see from market share, it's a mix between U.S. Mainly hyperscalers and focus players that we have, like Snowflake, Palantir, Databricks. These infrastructure stack players, they're part of this transition where countries are trying to make their own systems, right? So it's not specific to any one company. It's all of them, and including China, by the way, the open source. The open source models, as I mentioned, I think in the coming years, you'll have many countries begin to make their own open source models and send those outward bound from their country. So you're going to have a very big library of potential open source systems to choose from. And I expect that it won't just be US and China producing those infrastructure stacks and those open source systems to use and or private systems.
Yeah. By the way, the one slide that just has that you show me from day one is that global footprint of the data centers and how we dominate that currently, and how few really that are outside of the US and maybe China or what have you might throw in there. It's pretty incredible. And I liken this because I grew up on a farm in Indiana to a field where you planted some amount of that acreage, and then you've got the rest of it just available. I feel like this opportunity is so massive that I can't really wrap my mind around it, and it's amazing at the same time. And one of the figures you threw at me a while back was regards to the GCC, where I know you've been over there quite often and in talks at the highest levels there for Seven Boson Group, where they're at 1% and want to go, and I think 10% over the next 10 years. And it's amazing where we are in this whole, timeline of this build out that I feel like it hasn't even begun, right? I mean, we're not talking Elon Musk going to Mars and SpaceX, but Earth. And the opportunity here is so huge that it's hard for the common man to really wrap their mind around this. But I thank you for framing this today. Do you any last sort of remarks here that sort of sum it up for us, and then I'll bid everyone adieu. But
Sure. No, just big thanks to having me on the show and you inviting me. It's been a pleasure speaking. If anybody has any further questions, feel free to reach out. Obviously, we're doing some capital raise, so please do call in, and we're happy to see if we're a fit for you. But again, thank you so much. And I think this is an exciting time that we're in. It's an inflection point that we've been waiting for some time. We used to talk about superintelligence and AGI over the last couple, 3 years. And we really have met that point where we're at a tipping point here where things are going to accelerate. And it's very clear to almost every country around the world, they don't want to rent their own systems. They'd like to have control, particularly over the most mission critical systems for defense and healthcare and finance and others. So again, from a service perspective, we are here to make that happen, but we're here to make that happen securely, safely, and cost effectively. So that is, that's our mission. Thank you very much for the time, and thank you for all the listeners' time.
appreciate it, Chad, and thank you, Tribe, from around the world that have plugged in this morning. Again, a reminder: I'll do my best to get this event video out at our Tribe Public YouTube channel, so you may pass it on or review anything that we may have gone through quickly today. Also, reminder that if you would like to meet Chet in person, please feel free to reach out to me, and or if you'd like him to present at one of our events or luncheons, dinners, or become an expert at one of your existing meetings, reach out to me. That's part of what we do at the Tribe platform, is helping arrange those across our 41 venues, but we can also continue to add to that as so many have asked us to do so. Again, thank you. Thank you for being part of the Tribe, and thank you, Chet, for participating. And I wish you all a wonderful Friday and a great weekend ahead. All the best.
Thank you, John.